All right, well, speaking of girl power, our next guest was born into a family of strong women, and she's continuing that legacy. Her grandmother was a cancer researcher and civil rights activist. Her mother is a lawyer and policy expert, and her aunt is a United States Senator from California. You may have heard of her, Kamala Harris. She launched a female-powered brand back in 2017 to raise awareness to social causes and is now coming out with a children's book to inspire the next generation of changemakers. Joining us now is Meena Harris, founder and CEO Phenomenal and author of Kamala and Maya's Big Idea. Meena, so great to have you on with us. I do want to start with you giving us kind of an overview of what this book is all about.
Yes, I actually have it right here. I just carry it with me everywhere now. So it's about two sisters named Kamala and Maya, and you can probably hear my children in the background right now who love the book. They're very excited about it. But so it's about two sisters. It's based on a true story from the childhood of my mom, Maya Harris, and aunt Kamala Harris. And it's all about them spotting an issue in their neighborhood and specifically in their apartment complex in the courtyard and deciding that they're going to do something about it. And they come together as sisters, they come together as a community, they organize their community, all of the other kids in the neighborhood to problem solve and to get it done. And they overcome challenges along the way, and including adults telling them they're too small, it's too expensive, it can't be done. But they persist and they figure it out. And the main message is really that no one can do everything, but everyone can do something. All of us have a role to play, no matter how small. And when we all come together and do that, we can make incredible change in our communities.
I love when children's books in general, have characters that are diverse. How much progress do you think we have made when it comes to diversity and representation in children's books?
We've made some progress. We still have a long way to go, though, I would say. In 2018, so only 2 years ago, the statistic is that there were more children's books with animals as main characters than there were books with human characters that were Black,
Wow.
Latinx, Indigenous, and Asian combined, right? And so that's pretty stunning. And the same, I think, lack of diversity applies to authors and illustrators. So we definitely have a lot of work still to do in the publishing industry, but I'm also really proud to see, progress that we've made in just the last 2 to 3 years. And I personally, as a new author, am really proud to be a part of sort of this new generation and class of authors that are finally having their work seen and recognized. And others include, Hair Love, which is a fairly new book by Matthew Cherry. I mean, I can go on and on. There are so many other titles now, and I'm so glad that we're seeing progress. But I think still we have a long way to go, and I think that's what's important about my book in particular, in that it's showing Black girls as leaders, right? I think still, even though we're seeing more diversity and a more diverse cast of characters, they're not always the central characters, the main characters, right? And instead they may be supporting characters or still silent. So I think finding that real I think inclusion of diversity fully, and really seeing that full representation is something we still need to work on, but we've also made a lot of progress.
Yeah, that is such a good point, because it's not just about diversity in characters overall, it's in those lead characters. So I really like that you said that. I do want to highlight the family of powerful women you come from, specifically your aunt, Senator Kamala Harris, was a presidential candidate. So what do you think her campaign, though, overall did to inspire young girls who are pursuing leadership positions in the future?
Yeah, I mean, those were some of the most touching, emotional moments for me during the campaign, was seeing little girls looking up to her and seeing themselves in her and seeing what's possible, right, in her and in her candidacy. And even in my own household, my 4-year-old was going around, and still does, saying, I want to be president when I grow up. And the point is that representation matters. You can't be what you can't see. And when children, especially girls and girls of color, see someone out there being a leader and succeeding in the world, they see that it's possible for them to do that too. And you mentioned the family I grew up in, and that's exactly the environment I grew up in. It was just sort of all of these incredible, strong women, right, who really showed me not only, what they were doing and the important impact they were making, but that I could do that too. And they told me that every day. So it's really important. And I think, again, back to the book, to show representation in children's books and leadership. And I'm just incredibly proud of her. And obviously the historic nature of the campaign was something that inspired folks all over the world. And it was really exciting to see how it was impacting children, especially, and boys. I should make that point, right? I mean, boys should see powerful women in leadership and look at them as leaders that they aspire to and that they respect and want to follow.
And Meena, part of the progress we've made in representation is fueled by the challenging conversations we are having in this moment in our nation, in our world. What advice do you have for parents who might be struggling to explain to their kids what's going on in terms of racial injustices or even this global health crisis? What is that advice that you have?
I've been talking to so many parents, and you're right. I think a lot of them are struggling, but I think most importantly, they're really wanting to engage. And my first number one piece of advice is to be honest with children. I think it goes without saying that there's a way to talk about things honestly, that is age accessible and appropriate for the age of your child. But I think that sometimes we underestimate children's ability not only to understand, but to really, learn from their insights and their unfiltered insights in terms of what's happening in the world. And I think the second thing is it's important to generally talk to our kids about what's going on. And in doing so, we're communicating to them that we should care about what's happening outside of our households, outside of our, bubbles, right? And that we should be curious and compassionate about what's happening to other people in the world. So my number one piece of advice is to be honest and to think about how do you take what's going on in the world and use that as context for teaching children, universal lessons around things like empathy and using your voice and kindness, right? And thinking about what models of leadership we are wanting to teach our children and using real, events that are happening in the world to explain that to them. I also think obviously we have children's books and other ways of doing that, but I would urge parents to think about, all of what's going around us as yet another, tool and conversation starting point to really teach our kids the basic stuff that I think all of us are trying to do around empathy and kindness and just being good people.
Meena, quickly, I do want to ask you about Phenomenal, which you launched in 2017. Why is that program still relevant today?
Well, there are just so many issues I think that we are, dealing with in terms of our principal focus is raising awareness around issues that impact underrepresented communities. And as long as those communities continue to be underrepresented and experience issues in a distinct way, I think we will continue to be relevant. And we launched as a very small idea, which was initially to raise money for women's organizations through the sale of Phenomenal Woman t-shirts, which I happen to be wearing right now. And it's just, continued much longer than I ever expected, in part because we've been able to grow our community and really learn about a lot of other issues that are impacting different communities. So as an example, we launched a campaign at the beginning of the pandemic around anti-Asian racism. We did a huge campaign around the Black Lives Matter protests. We've in the past done campaigns around family separation and the humanitarian crisis at the border. And I think, as you well know, I mean, every day it just feels like there's another news story and another community that's being impacted or harmed, frankly. And I believe that it's our responsibility to raise awareness around that, to do whatever we can to lift up the work of incredible organizations that we partner with, and to continue talking about this stuff, right? I think we all need to engage, and part of it is making that accessible to everyday, ordinary people to engage with what are sometimes, I think, complex and challenging issues, right? And giving people the tools and the confidence to be able to really speak up about it.
Well, Meena, thank you so much for your time, for your insight, and all the work you've done. That's Meena Harris, founder and CEO of Phenomenal and author of Kamala and Maya's Big Idea.